There we go. Can I borrow it?
Now we do. Let's on television.
As you'll be moderating, can you moderate?
No, we need a
Okay.
Can you moderate?
Okay,
He will be able to this time. First one was tired.
so let's start this fourth edition of the Think Tank Meetups. We're going to discuss the consequences of the cultural reform, budget cuts, and yeah, basically what is happening and what would be a way to respond or a way to deal with all the changes that are happening. So I'll be moderating the discussion today, which means that if things are going too much off topic, I'll intervene and I'll make sure everybody is able to finish their sentences and yeah, that everybody can have their own share in the discussion. Usually we start out with a round of introductions so everybody knows who everybody is, especially since there are quite a few new faces. I guess it would be good to start doing that, and there will probably be a few more people coming in. We got some messages that some people arrive a bit later, so we'll just make them do introductions as they come in. So let's start with you, Pinar.
Me? Okay. I'm Pinar. I'm a sound designer. Studied in Holland in Utrecht and recently graduated. Now I'm working as a sound designer. Aside from that, I've been collaborating with Tyson especially for installation projects or more artistic projects. And yeah, that's about it, I guess.
I'm Robin. I'm also a sound designer. We graduated the same faculty. I graduated in September, and now I'm working as a freelance sound artist. I also worked at Fiverr, and I did an internship at Warp. So yeah, that's really interesting meeting to be a part of.
I'm Ronald. I'm a student at KMT as a sound designer, sound artist. Yeah, doing much on software design for music and sound design for various things.
I'm Shari. I won't fit in this little row here.
That's good, actually.
I'm not a sound designer. I was invited by Thijs to join this meeting because he was looking for a little bit of a different perspective on everything that's going on in the cultural sector right now. I'm going to be graduating in August from the HKU as well, but doing art management and doing a master's degree right now. So I might have a little bit of a different perspective on like money things and you know, yeah, it's important in a way, of course. And I'm really interested to talk to you all about this.
I'm Marieke van der Ven, and I work as a composer and sound designer. I make electroacoustic music and also collaborate with choreographers, dancers, theater makers.
I'm Yaniv. I come from theater. I studied 1 year scenology. I do a little bit of everything. Video, audio, theater, directing. And yeah, that's basically it. I build instruments. I'm just interested in what's happening in general.
I'm Christina. I work for Stein, amongst other things. I also work for various other educational places, I guess. And the stuff I do for Stein is centered around instrument design and taking care of the archive and doing a lot of the educational stuff. So I teach this time sonology master and I also teach the kiddie class that we do on Sundays. So I did the whole range, 4-year-olds to 20-year-olds. So.
So I'm Thijs, also studying at the KMT, also sound design. Together with Pinar, basically set up these meetings because we felt there was sort of a lack of. At the KMT, there's a lot of making, but not a lot of thinking about what you're making and why you make stuff and what's happening around the world in culture and in art. And that's why we hold these meetings, and basically the reason why I'm here.
Yeah, but it's not KMT linked, huh?
No, it's not KMT linked, but it's.
Yeah, it has a social link.
Yeah, it's we organize this from Soundlinks, which is basically a new up and coming arts collective that's basically started like 2 months ago and is slowly growing, getting more and more interesting.
Hence the topic is important for us.
Yeah. It's just also we are basically the newbies in this whole cultural thing, and that's why it affects us maybe in a completely different way from your background.
Possibly. More likely. I'm Walter. I'm an artist and some kind of activist from Rotterdam. I run the media lab at The Worm, which I founded with a couple of friends and colleagues back in 2007. It's the latest addition to the Worm organization to this day. Like most of you probably heard already, our situation is very strange, to say the least, at the moment. It's very uncertain, our future. But besides that, my background is very much in new media arts in the Netherlands. So, for example, I studied at the media arts department in Enschede from the AKI, where Joel, who was just here, was teaching just before I came there. René Coelho, the original founder of Montevideo, used to be the coordinator of that department. For me, the current situation of what's going on with new media arts in the Netherlands is, I find it unbelievable to take an advance on the discussion.
I'm Jarl Schulp. I run the Fiber Festival together with a group of 8 persons, different backgrounds from DJ to visual artists to media artists to more working with sound. We organized the Fiber Festival for the 2nd time this year, so we're also kind of really new, very young and very new collective. And from this moment on, we were able to do everything we wanted, but as we grow, the uncertainty with the whole cultural budget affects us in a way that we start to think, okay, we're not affected now, but what will happen in the future, and how will we now take this sort of approach and things. So I'm not affected by the budget of club yet, but very interesting in what's happening and see how we can survive.
Joel?
So I didn't meet a lot of you, but I'm Joel from Stein, actually, since American. I've been here since 85, 86. And Stein was on the Queen Wall just before they moved to the transition. And I was the guy who helped them the transition from the division agency, which is that. And it was such a great deal, I just there's so many wonderful people to meet coming in, and so it was an endless flow of people to play music with.
All right, so who would like to basically kick off and maybe going. Well, perhaps since one of the reasons why I really felt the need to organize this meeting was the message I read on Facebook by Warm, that their situation is so unsure. So maybe you can start off telling us a little bit about that, and we can move from there.
It's difficult to tell a little bit about that, but as I just mentioned to Jarl also, that our situation changes daily. Like today I had really bad news, yesterday I had really bad news, the day before I had really bad news. Like it's something
Changing every day.
It's something different. It's something different every day. The cuts in our funding are it beklijft, you would say in Dutch. Like we are on a daily basis understanding more and more about how things came about, how decision making processes went, for example, within the city with other funding that we expected to get but didn't get. And then also me telling about this is a very weird mix of hearsay, of facts, of my personal view on the situation, of Worm's view as a crew on that situation, but of course because of the situation that arose, which in short entails the whole substance of the content of Worm. Basically, that whole crew is will be fired. Basically, to put it really bluntly, you could say just to save the new building we have, we're cutting out the content, which is of course really disgusting.
I'm sorry, can you maybe tell me a little bit about Warm first, like in 2 sentences? Because I don't know anything about what you do. I hope that's not a problem for you.
No, it's a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
Well, Worm is an organization that is approximately 15 years old in the Netherlands. It exists under the name Worm for approximately 11 years. Before that, it was 3 different organizations that basically catered to underground culture and outsider art, very obscure performance art. So basically, everything that most mainstream stages will not show, that's what we are very interested in. We aim to provide a stage and a podium, or a stage and working facilities for upcoming artists or indeed people that really don't have a place elsewhere to perform or to show their work.
And venue as well.
Yeah, we have a cinema, we have a stage, we have studios, we have a shop, we have a cult video store, we have a bar, we have...
Why don't I know this?
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
It's in it.
Okay.
But
it's very well known in the music.
Yeah, I think that's very
and and I mean, really the one sentence thing or whatever would be like upon move. So we just have a new building recently. Worm has a really weird history of moving from place to place, kind of sort of from squatting type culture, you could say, like drifting through the city and occupying places that are also derelict, or hard to say. But the new place is magnificent. It's a really bizarre space actually, built for approximately 80% I think out of recycled material with a bunch of architects. Atelier van Lieshout built our office spaces. And kind of upon that move, Worm dubbed itself the Dutch Institute for Avant-Gardistic Recreation. So that's kind of a humoristic approach, of course, to what we try to be. And today you could say it becomes more and more clear that, or even more and more questionable, if if that place can actually exist, if it even was able to exist at all to begin with, or
Do you think, you were saying before that you're saving the building and getting rid of the people, is that what's really happening? So you're spending whatever money you have on rent, I'm guessing?
yeah, it's hard to tell, but I find it difficult to say, but yeah, that's what's
That's what
happening.
it feels like.
Mm.
No, that's really
Reality.
that's really the reality. Our direction had to propose because like the situation is really pressing. We lost over half of our funding, which as it happens, you're still like, no, it's like the suspension of disbelief thing that is continuously going on. So for me, it is actually still really difficult to say this is what's happening, but it's happening. Yeah. So the directors had to propose a couple of scenarios to the board of directors, and this was, for example, the Facebook message that that you then also saw as these two scenarios of one maintaining the building with minimal personnel and trying to keep the stages and studios open for artists and whoever we want to work with.
And running with volunteers and activists and...
Yeah, but the weird thing, of course, about that is that's what we do already anyway.
Yeah, so like, because the musicians are not really being paid that much. So.
Yeah, and then the other scenario is basically closed.
Yeah.
That's
In retrospect, do you think that the building is a problem?
Yeah, that's for
it's
me,
pointless in a way.
Yeah, but that's then, like I mentioned earlier, like everything I say here is will be a really weird mix of my personal opinion or views or things I heard and things I think about what actually happened in the. I mean, as an example, like I said earlier, like I'm one of the latest additions to the Worm team, and now, for example, which for me personally is kind of important or also strange to experience, is that now all of these stories come loose, in the city, and you hear more and more from people about how they see things, and for example, from people that know Worm for much longer than I do, because I came to Rotterdam in 2005 to study, and pretty much the first time I came to Worm was when we were doing our graduation exhibit there. Before that, I wasn't even a visitor of Worm that often. So, but then to hear now that, for example, one view is that Worm has been kind of hunting on this building hunt for 10 years, drifting to this ultimate climax, which is now the AAA location on Witte de Witstraat, Museum Mile style.
Perfect location.
And the head is being chopped off.
But you feel it's specifically about Worm, or not just because the money for this organization was also taken from Stein, from U2, other places?
Well, I'll give an example which is more about the Rotterdam situation, and for me also personally one that I have to consider is that given the example that let's say the studios will remain in the current building, but Worm as an organization will start charging us rent. So the artists of Worm, formerly the employees of Worm, might have to start paying rent for the studio facilities because it is such an expensive location. And so, for example, when we were running through these scenarios and really getting to terms with the heaviness of all of that, for example, 2 days later there comes this message out in Rotterdam that SCAR, which is an organization that runs atelier buildings, they are closing down 10 of their buildings, leaving more than 100 artists on the street. So in my personal, one scenario for me personally would be like, okay, if I cannot or if I don't want to pay rent for that studio on that location at Worm and have to look for an atelier space again, which is kind of the tradition that I come from in a way as a visual artist. There'll be a waiting list, like a really long waiting list. That is also really bizarre. So.
perhaps we can look at the sort of different viewpoint, because you've been working in a building. You got a whole host of new and upcoming artists here, so maybe we can get viewpoints on this whole situation of there. Feels like there's less and less places to go to as a startup artist.
Yeah, I mean, just to mention that maybe for you guys, the new situation that Worm wants to move towards is actually for upcoming people is yeah, hopefully it will prove to be interesting enough, because the idea is basically to provide the space that Worm is in all its facets, for as how do you say it? Like as easy as possible, as cheap as possible to upcoming new artists. So that's basically the plan we're moving towards.
Yeah, maybe some of the upcoming people want
Some of the upcoming people.
upcoming artists.
I don't know yet,
studying
but
or just-
Promising. Anybody who's promising, speak up.
I don't know, for me, within my experience, but for me it's a really also a personal story, because I did an internship at the previous location and some performances there, and working in the studio now and then in the new one and the old one. And for me it always has been like a place, yeah, that really gives you possibilities you can't find anywhere in Holland. Be it technical, be it a kind of a mind state, and kind of a field where you can really like put in your own ideas, and you get all the, yeah, you get direct access, and that's something which is really important if you're an upcoming artist or starting artist, to get these means. And I think the new building is a great investment, because it gives it a more face, and well, everything is just more professional in a way, which is really good, because it involves a lot of very delicate technical materials that can be harmed really easily. So yeah, I thought it was a really good investment, so I was really shocked also with the news.
But maybe playing a bit of devil's advocate, is it the place or is it Worm that's most attractive?
Well, I don't think it's the location, and I don't know enough about like the internal, yeah, how this like went like budget-wise. I don't know anything, of course. So I think one thing for Worm is what I've also always experienced, is that it really takes its own position, but in that way it can also be a bit introvert in the way of communicating and not really knowing who you can approach, and that's always a bit a hard part with Worm, because they really have a lot to offer, but not always the ability to reach people who could be interesting for Worm. And I don't know if that's one of the reasons why this decision has been made. But
Why do you think they don't have the ability to reach more people? Is it because you said it's very much internal, but
Yeah, I didn't quite get that at the time.
yeah, it's a bit like it's one big paradox. Like you stand out against the main movements and the regular waves of things. So you take another direction, and within this direction you're going to lose a lot of people. And it always has been, I always seem like with Worm that standing out in another direction, but then this always affects the communication, or how visible you are to people that...
So to be like so to say underground, you should not be visible? And if you're not visible, how do you sustain yourself?
I'm not saying you ought to, like, it's more something it's an observation.
Yeah, but
So-
like, then it's not favoring, if that's the case. Is that the case?
Yeah, I mean, I totally understand what you're saying, and I probably also fully agree with it. It's also, I mean, the paradox became even larger, of course, on the new location.
Because then you're really visible.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also I mentioned it briefly already. Is that I mean, for me, that's my personal opinion, but it's very questionable if you can build a temple for avant-garde art. You know? How does that work? Yeah, I mean, like.
And would a AAA location be that place?
Suitable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I totally believe in some function of that building, for example, and I know from experience that we had already in the new building. I mean, you can do really amazing things there, and the multifunctionality of the space is really interesting. You can run the weirdest programs with all kinds of stuff mixed.
Yeah, but it's more the kind of, does the building project what you guys are doing or not?
Yeah, but
Is that the
then-
case?
but
I mean,
then
it's
still-
time. It's time. I can totally say that. So this time having this building, I don't know if it falls to the same category, but say this building is sort of Stein.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's the case with Worm.
That's very much the feeling we have. Like
Yeah.
the second the building goes, the name may move somewhere else, but it won't be Stein.
Yeah. But is that an emotion? Like in this case, it's also emotional, obviously, but it also has a realistic side to it.
Architectural.
Being, yeah.
The walls, the speak.
Get in here. That's at your extent.
No, it's a machine. It has.
It's a machine. I mean,
functionality.
this building is a machine for being Stein.
Yeah.
It's built to
With the parts from the actual living quarters to the working space to everything. But it,
Perhaps Jarl can maybe hook on here because you don't really have a space.
No, we really want the space.
is
It's really hard now.
that even
getting more
a
the
smart
space.
move now?
That's a good question. Is it a smart move?
Maybe can you elaborate on
Don't get a
that?
space.
Maybe I can ask a question before you say it, because for me the issue is whether you can design a building to be an occasion, because music is an occasion, it's not really a place. And so the problem is occasions change, parties, a particular kind of musical style or musical moment is just a moment. It goes on for a few years or a decade or something like that, and then the party's over. And is it possible to satisfy that need from a more centralized architectural design, visual point of view? Is there perhaps a built-in conflict here between the flow of music and the kind of momentariness of music?
I think it's possible, but it becomes more and more complicated if you try to deliver the type of content that Worm wants to deliver. There I've become very hesitant in saying that it is possible, because if I look from my own experience in like all the stuff from being a teenager, like everything I encountered that really inspired me, I found everything in different places, and most of it in places where I didn't expect it. So indeed, this temple idea for avant-garde art is, but this is then also something that I'm not even sure if a lot of my colleagues are also. I mean, we talk about these things, but like this is for me something I've started thinking about, kind of when also it started going downhill, of course. And you start reflecting more and more on those situations.
I was wondering, you don't build this place on your own. You have like partnerships. You have like the municipality of Rotterdam is involved. There are a lot of parties probably involved with creating this AAA location. What happened to these partnerships? Is everybody saying now like, oh yeah, we'll have budget cuts, sorry, we have to go, and you're on your own? What happened to these alliances that you built? And I'm quite positive about it going that really fast. What's this relationship worth?
Yeah, it's difficult to say, but I would think that, for example, most alliances are commercial ones, and those are like the board of directors is aiming at keeping those intact because the building has to remain open.
Yeah.
But of course, I mean, I don't know so much about that because it's really not my. These are negotiations that are currently also very much all over the table. And
yeah, not only like on a financial basis, but it's like almost making this location, this wonderful place in the heart of Rotterdam, is something more emotion. A lot of people are emotionally also involved, or have more sort of relationship with you, getting into this area.
Yeah,
And
but
how is the
but,
community reacting to that? Is
yeah, but there you quite quickly move away from focusing so much on Worm only, because all of the stages in Rotterdam are very heavily affected.
Right.
And like I mentioned already, like
Yeah.
all cultural organizations are very heavily affected. And this is, for example, also the main, I don't know if you can say the main approach of the Rotterdam Council, but just to sketch that situation is that they were surprised that we would even complain, you know, because they're like, we gave you money, you should be happy, you know. And yeah, for me it becomes a bit difficult to say like who's right or who's not. It's like it's because we are shooting for so much funding in different places that.
Why were you surprised? This is not. I don't have any opinion. I'm just wondering. Why were you surprised that you didn't get the money?
Did I say?
Yeah, I thought you said. Didn't you say that you were surprised that you didn't get? They said that they were surprised that you were surprised.
Oh yeah, well.
Or not?
Yeah, but it's, I don't know. I mean, it's like the situation for us could have been, it couldn't have been much worse actually. So maybe there's some surprise there, I guess. Or, I don't know. I mean, that's also like the whole of all these funding applications combined is really. I mean, the term creative bookkeeping is used a lot where we work, but yeah, like I mentioned already, that's not really my work also, so I'm not so knowledgeable about that, of course, but yeah, it's quite a big thing, so to say. It's like, yeah, there's so much going on in terms of funding, and we had just a really bad luck that the city cut us with like 200,000 something, and then this new funding situation where New Media Arts was kind of forced into some weird form of creative industries. There was another 200,000 on the table there that also got cancelled, and for us that's pretty much half our, those two together is pretty much half our budget. So, yeah.
Do you know what's the main reason for cut funds?
Yeah, there is no main reason because that's already two very different situations. So yeah, you could say that that's also like really recent news, which I'm not even sure if I can say so much about it. But it seems that, for example, the local Rotterdam situation, the way they were dispersing or dividing the money over the podia, and different cultural organizations. It now becomes more clear that the people who actually did this job, kind of, you couldn't say they didn't have a clue, but they sure as hell didn't have a clue about the overall effect on the whole Rotterdam cultural sector. So everybody is affected, but those effects combined, they had not anticipated.
A lot of these fundings that we've discussed so far are government, either local government or some other. Are there alternatives to this? Like maybe going to, I don't know, either crowdfunding or to privatize.
We talked about the first Thijs and I chat on Facebook, and when we read the news, it's like he invited me, and the first thing you think of is like, oh, crowdfunding. Is that a possibility? But I'm very curious if it's a possibility, and if you have a crowd enough to raise this amount of money and be really, I don't know, does anybody has experience in crowdfunding?
I was chatting with this trumpetist, as one does, and she runs some theater shows, really amazing stuff. And she was really positive. She was having this really positive attitude. And it's an unusual conversation to be having with a fellow artist in Amsterdam at the moment. To talk to somebody who's thinking it's going well. And she was like, no, it'll be fine because everybody will be getting more used to paying for things. And I just had this moment of thinking, yes, but it'll be me paying you and you paying me. And there won't, that's the problem with the people who want to crowdfund Worm are us. And we would like Worm to crowdfund us. I don't think, do you know what I mean? Like, I think it's a relatively closed pool of people who thinks that this is worth doing. And this is the problem.
Is it really?
I don't know.
I don't know, but
Why don't we put it on a test? What's to lose?
What's the big? It's not the Opera House, but we just survived because of a big sort of stock selling. What is it?
Concertgebouw.
Concertgebouw, yeah.
They're very smart in the way.
They
But
managed
that's something
with-
you should see as an example in the way of looking for other ways of.
But they have own capital, right?
Yeah, that's
very
complex.
That's a
Very,
different,
very
yeah.
complex.
They actually
yeah.
have a pot of money that they're managing.
Yeah.
And then they're doing their thing based on that pot of money.
You still have to, you first have to have that pot of money
No.
in order to.
If you own the building,
Yeah.
if you have it, like if you guys own the building, you could rent out the basement and live happily ever after.
Yeah.
And that's a totally different thing. Then you're managing something.
Yeah.
Here we are kind of sort of on purpose kept on a level where we have to spend everything every year. We're not allowed to have own capital. We're, there is nothing to manage, really, other than the content to some extent.
We are also continuously in this battle of also having to do rental stuff to gain some income. But if you do too much rental stuff, then you're funding.
Because you just loan
you're doing all this commercial work with cultural money, So it's impossible. You cannot really work like that.
Is it a choice, like either go commercial or go the government funding road? Is that like either or?
Well, one of the scenarios for Worm is indeed then separating the studios from the public building, and for example the really nice office spaces that we have, renting those out to upcoming design bureaus or architects that can actually pay for those facilities.
But I don't know if you guys are aware of what B2 is doing.
I'm not aware of any anymore.
But they're basically looking at splitting up into two organizations.
What are the
I didn't know that.
One that makes money and one that doesn't.
like the lab,
Like officially split up.
like the lab and the
Roughly
commercial.
speaking, right?
That's basically the either or
Yeah.
thing.
But this is similar to what Mediamatic has been doing for years.
Yeah.
With various degrees of good times and bad times. And we're this idea that Mediamatic, their content management thing, was basically paying for some of the other stuff.
Worm is doing the same, but we are still not so successful with it. But we have this, how do you say, an event programming software that Worm created, which is now turned into a business also. But since the current situation emerged so fast, for us this is a non-issue at the moment.
Sorry to interrupt, but we are getting questions, apparently.
Alright.
Yeah.
Oh.
Not really questions, kind of naive, but okay, so it's become commercial somehow, at least capitalism allows growth. One of, Martin says actually.
Yeah.
So, going from there, is there no way that you can sort of branch out commercially, just to support back, sort of create your own thingy?
But
You could, I think.
A product sort of thing, or I don't know how this goes, but...
In the last festival we met guys from Istanbul, Notabene officials.
Yeah.
And of course you met them of course. And what they do in Istanbul is they have like commercial assignments and art projects.
Yeah.
And they switch between the two of them. And what they do is they sometimes invest their own time and money in a project that's art-based. You travel around through festivals, and at some point the thing becomes a product or something in the process you can turn into a product, and they show it to different companies in different cities. And it works now. They have like clients that are that they work now commercially based on a starting board of an art project, and it works also the other way around for them. In this
The problem
key thing here is to be portable, to be movable.
Yeah.
And that's also why, I hear you saying you want a building, and my immediate inner
No,
alarm goes,
no,
don't
we're really thinking about it.
stay light.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think
Yeah,
that's
no
really
matter
more
is the
relevant
best,
to you
yeah.
guys,
Yeah.
like up and coming. So, it's like you're like the whole line here. And because you're in the moment of like trying to establish yourself, and I think that one thing there's no question that these organizations are going to have a really hard time, simply because it's very hard to take something that is non-commercial and turn it commercial when you have lots of latency.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very hard to take a lorry and turn it into a race car.
Yeah.
But you
It
don't have
takes
to
a
go
lot of
that
modification.
The only thing was
you
that
don't have to
One at a
necessarily
time.
go complete extremes, no? I mean, these people, not a bit, but there are other examples as
Yeah.
well. They're mostly working into like visuals, obviously, more like projection mapping is kind of a
Yeah.
big thing, and they are working for advertising. Obviously, the main thing is that, and I'm not saying that's the way to go here. Obviously, probably some of the organizations, by maybe even ideology, will be against that kind of approach. Maybe, I don't know, but if you pick that road, I also see sort of a disadvantage to it, that the artistic side doesn't necessarily get much time or space. I mean, not physical space, but space to develop itself to something to find its full potential in a completely artistic, whatever perspective. Because they always have this idea that it should be possible to turn this into a product.
Well,
You have that
not really
idea.
a
and-
starting point for them, I think.
No, but I do think it has an influence. I think it would be naive to think that they just do it for the sake of doing it and not consider the
Yeah.
financial outcomes.
But if you compare it with Lust, a company from The Hague, they're graphic designers, interaction designers, and they had like a commercial company for years. And within that company, they did a lot of experimenting, just for the fun and experimenting art. And now they split their company, literally 2 years ago, I don't know exactly, into Lost Lab and Lost.
Yeah, that lab part, yeah.
And for them, what Dimitri, the guy who runs it, says is like it works really well, because in the left part you can really create things that be on their own, and it just works. And but he said like you have to be really strict, that on both sides you have to be really clear, 100% clear what you're doing.
Yeah.
That it doesn't get like intertwined.
Yeah, that's what I was meaning.
The gray area should be, there should be something, but not really two, because there are two different parts. And maybe, I don't know how Mediamatic works, but maybe something like switching products.
I think they're in transition, actually. I know how they used to work, but I think the deal keeps changing slightly.
I'm wondering though, considering, for instance, Worm's point of view of really looking at the underground and developing avant-garde stuff, how you place that into a commercial context, because the outset is so almost anti-commercial in a sense.
Yeah, but I think it divides also on musical and visual art design, because there's actually no kind of visual art that isn't potentially commercial in some sense, historically. That's not true about music.
No. Unfortunately.
Music is not commercially viable.
It's actually the opposite, yeah.
Yeah, and then even more so with new media, or
Yeah.
like the lab that I run, is like some of the projects that we have running at the moment are always commercially have a lot of potential. I mean, for Worm, for the organization that is Worm, and that it grew to be, I think the main, and that's also way beyond my personal involvement in Worm, is that the experience that lives in that organization with people like Lucas Simonis, for example, who was all. He also wanted to come tonight, but couldn't, unfortunately. But I mean, yeah, some of the people in the sound studio that you worked with, and of course the people that brought Worm to where it is today. That's for a large part the people that are losing their jobs now, and that's so. I mean, yeah, commercial potential aside or commercial potential of anything aside, is that. I mean, the cultural organizations in the Netherlands that are all threatened today by all these reforms. Yeah, I mean, of course you have to look ahead at what we have to do to maintain some of the stuff that was developed, but over the whole you could say that we are losing 30 plus years of really interesting experience. That's mostly me talking about new media arts.
No, but it's specifically that. I mean, like, there's not going to be jobs in these organizations. And that means that the jobs that are there now, you're right, they hold a ton of experience and a ton of knowledge, and that's just going to cease to be available.
Yeah, but it's not. I mean, from our example, it's not really about the jobs. Like for us, it's really simple. Is that our whole funding for programming is gone. Like the programming that Warren did, that is just over. You know,
Programming is in
we can
concerts, not in typing code.
All our taxes are gone.
It means
Programming is in
flying
concerts.
people in to do stuff.
Yeah.
Playing.
No, but also our own production. You know, we run productions, workshops. We organize shows. We have cinema twice a week. And so forth and so forth.
So
all
just the
that
building
stuff.
stays.
Yeah, we can pay rent. We can pay rent, and if you ring our doorbell, someone will open.
Okay.
That's what it comes down to.
That's avant-garde.
Yeah, that's.
Well then,
That's
if I hear
simple piece
this,
of avant-garde.
if I hear this, then I really think that the building's a problem.
Yeah.
Because it's like all the money is going to your building
Yeah.
right now, and if you didn't have the building, don't get a building.
No. I will get later. No, I will get back later.
Then
This is quite-
it seems like the money could have gone to so many more things. That's just how I'm kind of perceiving it.
There's
right
a
now.
famous book in, I don't know when it was written, I think the 1930s and 40s called Peter Principle. And in sociology it's really famous because it's written by this guy who wrote a history of the Admiralty, the British Admiralty. He's trying to explain why actually it's about, why did the British beat the French? The difference was the French had a professional navy and the British had an amateur navy, which was made up of independent commercial ship captains who at time of war became part of the navy. But there were all these, it was written kind of like a math book with all these kind of aphoristic kind of theorems. And one of them was that any institution reaches its end when a building is purposely built.
Again?
What, sorry? Wait.
Wow.
We have a reference to this?
Whenever you have a purposely built building, he gave, and all these things come out amazingly true, you know, like, and it's about the way the main thing is the fact that you always rise to your level of competence. That's the main theorem of the book. In any organization, everyone raises floats to their level of incompetence. And that's the reason organizations always collapse, because everybody's always doing a job they're not qualified for.
Always promote him up.
You know, we're all friends here. But the main one that is put here is that, you know, you guys are in the situation of having your purpose built. That's the difficult situation.
Yeah, your example makes total sense to me. Also, the comment about rising to like how we came at that level, and also it's like just to keep it open is not it's not going to be anything like the organization that it was before. I mean, and that's also kind of on a positive note, like. A lot of the stuff that we do, being very expert, for example, in DIY culture, is that, I mean, most people's individual creativity will not suffer so much maybe from this situation, and for a lot of people it is also, I mean, I've heard colleagues say, including myself, that it is also so.
It might be a good thing.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It's an interesting thing that's happening.
It's like, now that some people are relieved also, you know, because we have such a heavy time behind us now in moving to this new building and stuff. But it's but yeah, the building is problematic.
If I can get back to my building.
Yeah.
I was saying it for like very black and white, but what we actually are looking for, we are a network organization, so we don't have any office. We do everything online. We work in very different spaces, meeting up in bars, in places, And we are a festival organization, so we peak once a year, and that's the moment when everything has to happen. But what I really would like is something in between, because we have a lot of young, very interesting artists coming through our networks. We talk with a lot of them, and I want to show a lot of work and help them and do and make stuff together. But you need a place for it, because now we'll be getting asked a lot to do different kind of projects, like working together with different festivals to make a program. Like you have like a big festival program. We provide a small part. We do a small exhibition at, we're now working at the exhibition at a very cool place. But now it's becoming harder to work in this kind of network that we're used to. So I'm really looking for spaces and places where we can just settle down and sometimes just put laptops together or weld things or make things. And so that's not like a building, but it's a space or a network of space where you know you can...
Physical space?
Yeah, sometimes a physical space, because I really miss working with my colleagues and taking the time to really make something.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of projects that are self-made, or we get artists in and try to make something for especially for the festival.
Yeah.
And that's getting really hard now. So
You know, there's a lot of, that's what I'm seeing, a lot of like werkplekken created amongst locations. Like, actually, I think that would be a very interesting thing for you to think about. But Huis en de Werf, I work there, and they turned their, I don't know if you guys know Huis en de Werf. They turned their foyer into a working space. So every day it's open and the bar's open. I kind of wonder how much money they make, you know, because that's the whole idea behind it, you know, having the bar open, food, drinks, so that's a source of income. But maybe finding a place like that where you can settle down just for the day and then you leave.
Well,
And then, you know, there's a lot of things like that happening right now.
Is this like working at Starbucks or something?
It's a little bit different. No, it's
Working at Starbucks and working at Starbucks.
I guess
Yeah, I know, but
it's close.
Starbucks.
But because sometimes
No, I mean
you
that, yeah.
have bigger spaces in these places than Starbucks, and
Yeah.
it's focused on creatives.
Yeah, sure, yeah. So it's a but it's something like that.
Something like it.
Yeah, so it's about
Yeah.
community and presence.
Yeah, exactly.
there's another question. Actually, he asked us before, talking about flexible modular architecture, etc. But it was past, but now we're back. He says, like, does it need to be a single, constant space, or could it be ad hoc since this is a project-based thing? It seems like. And if that's from there on, I mean, the answer is probably yes. But then, what kind, or can we elaborate on this?
Like a big tent or something, or
Or I don't know, or a big caravan, or I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
it would be
Why not a
something.
caravan?
But it has to be also has to have the quality that if you need it, you
it's
can
there.
access it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's still sometimes a problem for us, that we need a space because there's a certain there are 2 projects or 3 projects running at the same time,
Yeah.
and you think, okay, if I would only sit down with these guys instead of only doing everything with computers, I could just say like, hey, should we do this now, or
Yeah.
make some. It's the physical interaction, and so yes, it could be different spaces, but it still has to be within a certain range and accessible quite often.
Okay. Can't be some sort of a, like, I don't know, like a caravan, huge one, like huge, I don't know, like, that could work actually if you have a really big one.
I don't
For
know,
some
but-
stuff at least, not
But I
big.
was thinking when in the end, when a lot of these organizations end up with having empty spaces, just to say it really black and white again, there's maybe some sort of new sort of network where you can go around in one city and work in different places. I don't know. Do you have it like for the creative industry and all these business companies? They have like these huge places where you can sit and you pay like €100 and you can just exit it all day, like spaces on the Heergracht.
Yeah.
It's only laptop-like, seats to meet,
Yeah.
but it doesn't help you in the end.
Yeah.
I guess one of the things that both Stein and Worm provide, which is quite rare, is a specific support for artists who want to develop something but don't have either the know-how or the means. And it provides like residencies, which are especially for startup artists really interesting because they can access certain knowledge that is pretty hard to get at on your own. And I mean that's the thing that you still lose if the space is there.
Mhm.
That's cool, but you miss the background and the sort of the.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah.
I mean, Yannick, you've been doing residencies here at Stein,
Yeah.
so maybe you can sort of elaborate on.
Well, I got the space for almost 8 months. Since I live in Holland and I could come about 2 weeks every month, sometimes more. I had help from upstairs, I had the space. I got the piano here, I played the piano out of it. It had, the space was important. I mean, I felt at home every time I came here. So there's something about also a specific space, but for festivals it's maybe a little different. I know for Worm it sounds like a space would be like a specific space, like it's STEM, which was extremely helpful. Because I know every time I come here, I can leave my stuff here. I have the people that know me, and along the way, you know them better and better, and it was very convenient.
I think it's special about the place like Worm, and Stein has a little bit of that too, is that it's a kind of random access for the audience. And the audience knows that if they go there on Thursday night, they're taking a chance, but not a ridiculous chance. They're taking a chance that it's going to be something really interesting. It may not be a 50-50 chance, but it's a lot better than if you go to the pub.
Yeah.
Where the chance is like zero.
At least you know what to expect, and whether you're disappointed or you're not.
And don't forget, the audience has no. I mean, I watch it when it comes in. You know, certainly, 50% of the audience is an insider, know-it-all audience. And, you know, and there's all those other people who just walked in and were like kind of amazed, and that's really cool.
Yeah.
And they keep coming back and keep being amazed because.
Well, that's also what Worm is really good at. Like I organized last year a very heavy noise evening where there was a club night after, and then you had this clash of audiences.
Yeah.
This is what we like to do, you know, like grungy looking black clothing wearing guys with, and then really cute girls with stiletto heels on.
Nice.
You know, it's like we think that's really a cool thing to do.
Yeah.
But the harsh thing about that is that with all the new chances on this new location for that, and it's also symptomatic for what's happening in Rotterdam, because we're not the only example of this, but like chopping off the head before even giving it a proper chance. This is what happened to Watt, of course. It's happened to different stages in the city of Rotterdam. And now it seems that, like again with this surprise that you also mentioned, from us, but also from the city council, saying like, oh, you're complaining, you know, like, oh, you think you didn't get enough. And so with this ignorance kind of, it's unworkable. You know, you cannot really. At the moment, it doesn't seem like we will be able to get out of it. Also, that image of that situation.
So, Mark, you just joined. Yeah, so maybe you can first introduce yourself to those who don't know you yet. I think you know most.
Well, most of you probably know me. I met you before at Worm as well. I'm Mark, I'm a sound designer, composer. I do, that's what I do. And I also do workshops, sometimes together with Robin. And this year I'll teach some Maximus Peak kind of like stuff at HKU in Hilversum. So I wasn't really prepared for
Usually you have a text.
You
prepare at home in front of the mirror.
Teleprompter, what do you call it? The news. And I did some. I became more involved with Stein because I met Christina, and then I helped her out with some children's workshops, which was awesome.
But so maybe from the children's workshops, well, for now some kids are being taught how to make really cool noisy machines, but where will they be able to go with that by the time they become our age? So maybe we can do some future gazing into
STEM 2.0.
like what would be a sort of cultural climate for them? Will there be still like
Are
places
places
like
like
this?
place still as well? Like,
places or people to go to? Or
mm,
People to go to will be.
yeah.
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 I don't worry about that much. I mean, places.
Plenty of
That was the whole thing. That if it was the important thing.
I had this exact experience with one of the children's workshops. That one of the kids who came to build, we were building oscillators with 9-year-olds. And one of the kids went home to his media, music, composer parents and said, "I want to work at Stein when I grow up." And then, and it was one of those moments where I really kind of went, ah.
Ah, shucks.
And it's just that I think that it's not that it's going to be impossible to do the work.
Mhm.
I think the work will happen, but I don't think it'll happen in the way that we have seen it so far.
But don't you think it's also because Stein was created in a countercultural kind of moment. It stayed that way for a really long time. It always saw itself as oppositional to the contemporary music establishment, to the jazz establishment, to the whatever establishment. So there's only so long you can get away with that
Yeah.
before history catches up with you. And
Good point.
yeah. And history, has caught up with us for sure.
Next week, dubstep.
But can you, in other words, this is a different thing. Because I'm not, Nederland's not even European, so the idea that you can make an establishment that's anti-establishment is a very European idea, which is almost inconceivable if you're not a European. It's like, what? How can you do that? But it's something you could do in France and something you could do in Holland, but not many other places could you get away with it. Not many other places, maybe in Sweden, Denmark, fewer places where this idea that you could institutionalize cowboys or institutionalize, so you have a very different expectation than we who come from cowboy country have, where you know what cowboys are really like. You really want to give them money? What? So but it is a question to decide. I mean, like how can you formulate an anti-establishment? Because that is the issue in arts. I think it has to be an anti-establishment in some way, whatever that is.
Yeah, I think one kind of left that idea already a bit. Is that we are just very promiscuous.
Promiscuous.
Yeah.
Not anti-establishment.
Yeah, so we dance with everybody.
Yeah. Yes.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's good.
If we think it's fun and we have some money for drinks, then it's good. Yeah.
What kind of people don't come to one? Because you get heavy metal people, you get emos, whatever.
I don't know. I'm trying to get a knitting club in at the moment. So
Yeah.
I'm not really sure who's not coming to one.
Yeah.
So we don't really have a conception of that.
Yeah, of what's not who you are.
I'm kind of wondering because one of the issues that seems to sort of pop up is, at least in my head, is it a problem that there is focus on being into a sort of niche, like sort of needs to keep things in crowd, and so it's mostly accessible to people who are already very much into experimentalism and finding new borders. And is that maybe sort of core of the problem, that it's really difficult to translate these things to larger audiences and bigger acceptance also? It's like the sort of which I personally hate, but the Henk and Ingrid arguments that they give, like 95% of people out there don't really give a fuck about what's happening in the cultural streams. What are the positions on that? And is that something to take into account, or specifically not?
Henk and Ingrid's culture is also culture.
Sorry?
Hank and Ingrid's
Mm.
culture
Which is-
is also culture.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't really try and pull that away from each other so much. It's just that.
I think the thing, what we try to do within the festival is to sort of provide different perspectives on maybe really hard subjects of generative art, or for the general public it's like a big thing, generative art. What's generative art? What is generative? And
It's art.
what's art? Yeah, of course, the same thing. Yeah.
Let's not go there.
I mean, niche again, yeah. But I think the mixture of how you present things is something we have to take more into credit. I think make more layered programs, or have that you're not only doing it for this type of people that already know it, but have like something next to it that has an accessibility. Through this work, you can understand the next work, or I don't know. That's something we try to do in festival.
Sort of like educating.
Yeah, or inviting. Or
I think you're also more on how Joel also mentioned earlier. Like, I mean, movements or new initiatives, they will always be there. Kind of. That will be the core of our work anyway. You know, like you guys, all of you can, if you feel comfortable or very inspired by some kind of movement at some point, you should just hop on and stay on it as long as you can, or take it to wherever you find interesting. But like how Robin alluded to some of the weirdness surrounding Worm earlier already, is that we like for years and years nobody really knew what we did, you know. It was like from being completely unknown with the organization to being vaguely up to speed with what Worm does. But then a colleague of mine said really funnily earlier this week is that for years we had people saying like, what is Worm? and now, for example, after
There's a T-shirt.
yeah, but now it's, so for years we get like, what is Worm? What is it? What is it? And now it's like, oh, you're closing. Yeah. And so now it doesn't even matter anymore what it once was. People say, oh, it's so terrible, you're closing, you know. And indeed, this rise on Facebook that I haven't experienced so much, but upon releasing, because I'm not on Facebook, but I know that upon releasing this message, that like the two doom scenarios for Worm, there was like all this protest on Facebook, you know. Like, oh, it's terrible, it's terrible.
What is Worm?
It's just terrible. Yeah, but also at the same time, we were open that same evening, and I don't see those people, you know. So it's
a virtual protest.
Yeah.
A lot. It's insane.
But I think one of the reasons for that might be that the internet is international, and I mean somebody in New York might find it pretty terrible that an experimental venue is leaving, but he's not going to take a flight to Rotterdam to visit the show.
No, but yeah, also
I
I
just-
have no
I just,
idea how many experimental places there are and what's the reason why it's closing. That's another issue.
Yeah, well,
Virtual
ironically,
protest is-
I just saw guests of mine last week or 2 weeks ago who were from New York leaving on this note, you know. It's like, it was really cool to have you guys over, and it was a pleasure working with you, but it's not very likely that I'll be able to invite you again. That's, yeah.
But
So hooray, internet.
what do you think, and it's a question for everybody, about the change from funding to different types of money, making money or surviving? Because this thing is actually happening quite fast, and it is happening, and we should do something with it. And I don't know if anybody has already made certain steps or thought of any steps that are successful, or we work with partnerships within the festival, and it's not about money but about, please, I can use your beamers and I expose your name. Simple, but it works. But do any of you have like ideas on that, or experience?
Yeah, I'm moderating, so
You should talk.
I don't have any money, so.
No, it's
I indeed don't have much money, but I do specifically I just specifically split my work into commercial and non-commercial, and actually using sounds that I create in the program in my non-commercial work. I always like record little bits, and I use that for my sound design work, which is paid, and which is so that there's sort of a crossover where I borrow from my artistic work and my commercial work, which is helping both actually, because commercial work keeps my artistic work financially free of financial stuff, so I don't have to make artistic compromises because I want to make money. And on the other hand, the artistic stuff generates so much noise that I can create quite unique sound design. For instance, I did the trailer for the Fiber Festival.
Yeah.
Almost all sounds I used were from art projects and just recycled.
What? Trash.
Let's open up a new discussion, copyrights and whatnot.
You get back all the money.
That's funny, I didn't know, but it's interesting.
But yeah, so I do have this divide where I try to keep the artistic bit as artistic as I can, and the commercial bit can just borrow from the sound input. And other than that, I'm looking for education as a form of money making, basically. So workshops and
I think if you go back to like the roots of, for instance, a foundation that is built upon avant-garde or experimental art, you can't always impose this linearity that you're suggesting now. It's a really hard topic. I think it's good to think about it, but I think like you on one hand you're going to make these sacrifices, and you always have to like look what does remain from my original idea and the reason why I started this. And then for you it works because it's in balance, because you sacrifice some, but you know I'm going to sacrifice this time because then I have enough time to do the artistical.
It basically comes down to working well over 80 hours a week, having basically 2 full-time jobs.
Yeah, so you create an extra life, so it's still in balance. But I mean, I wonder how it relates to like you on an individual level, to an organization,
that's what I was actually
to a foundation. Because
like the way you live is kind of common in artist society. I mean, they always have a side job that keeps the money in so that they can do other stuff on the side. I mean, Christina used to tell me like that she knew someone, maybe you know who she was talking about, but doesn't matter. There was this artist who never gave up his post office job, no matter how established he become or whatever. But it's this kind of thing, like having a side job is a common thing. How much you can balance it, how much they can actually benefit from each other, kind of if it does, you're lucky that you're able to make money out of something that you can feed back into your art, or the other way around, which is actually a model with the Notabene or say Nerdworking from Turkey are doing in a more organizational level. But they are doing commercial stuff next to it, and they're doing artistic works as well, or research even for their own curiosity. So when the money comes in, as far as I know, at least for Nerdworking, I can speak a bit. Not that I know a lot, but the founder of it, Erdem, he's the guy who initiated the whole thing. He used to tell me like that they had this pool of money that they could give to the artists that are part of the collective if they want to come up with an idea and they need some quick cash to buy some cars or whatever. This is a basic start, and for the Sound Links collective that we're trying to initiate, we had the same idea that we would be able to do some hopefully commercial works as well. Whether those commercial works doesn't necessarily have to be products or services, but I mean they can also be sort of educational commercial works, like workshop kits or whatnot. And at the end of the day, you can both whoever is involved, whoever taking the job, can get their money for it. But you can also have an internal pool, hopefully. But financially, I don't know how much of a smart thing this is, because we're not coming from an entrepreneurial idea that we're going to make profit out of it. Our initial idea was that could it sustain itself? Can we somehow find a way to make projects at the end partially goes back to the collective, and we can at some point take it back to make another project, so it's kind of historical. But then you're still looking for outsource, like other people will give you projects, or menus that you can sell your ideas.
It still has a commercial
Yeah,
side to
it
get
has
money
to.
and yeah,
But
or
then again-
an art side, but it's getting different now. Yeah.
Yeah, it is getting different, but the art side is, we never initially, I mean, when we started talking about our naive collective idea, we never really put too much thought on funding for some reason. We were really like, first we have to get around for like establishing ourselves and getting our names out, be also commercially like in some sort of financially profitable way active, so that whatever comes in goes to individuals. Like actually Mark, Thijs and I am part of it right now from this group. And we are already doing freelance jobs. We were doing. Now I have a daytime job, which makes working after hours interesting. But, it is. I'm lucky that it's sound design. So, but not everybody is as lucky. So we're trying to find a platform where we can sort of expand our networks as starter artists, or what's coming up, artists, designers, whatever. Who I know becomes who you know. So we expand. It eventually means more financial possibilities for you to do. But also, it's not just individual that Mark finds someone to make a project for, but it also as the collective, you become an identity slowly.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing. Also, because of Soundlinks, I think a lot of us will be able to get commercial jobs.
Or more artistic, whatever.
Or artistic, yeah, both. Yeah, so it's all about expanding the network.
Yeah, it's an investment. We can't say that it's working, but that was our idea. That let's do what we're already doing individually, but together, sort of thing.
So you've got a name,
Yeah.
and that has a
Sort of,
reputation,
yeah.
hopefully in some time, and that you can build upon.
Yeah, maybe it's interesting to look if you can. I think it's getting harder and harder now because all the funding and all the things are like really project based, so you don't have a really long. You're not easily founded to experiment anymore. So maybe within this collective you can just work together and to buy this time together to develop one or two works you're really enthusiastic about.
It's already happening, not weirdly enough. Like, I mean, nothing extremely big, but there's been projects, and I couldn't take it because I just started my daytime job, and I was like, hey, there's this thing, would you guys be interested? And they were like, yeah, and this is crazy. It does like 3, 4, or whatever quadruple jobs at the same time, and Mark and Thijs just did it together. I mean. And this is just an example of how things can be passed on, but it also means that at some point we can make, as you said, time to just dig into things that we would like to try just for the sake of trying, or for our own intellectual or whatever curiosity. And then again, the question is how you're going to make a living as an individual, because this collective is based on individuals. If there are nobody there, it doesn't exist because it's not a physical place, physical space. Then then comes the commercial side of it. Like, how can you use this name to make more money come in, sort of. But,
do you see a future where maybe there are games with the Soundlinks logo on it, like Soundlinks?
Wow, it's a genuine Soundlinks.
I don't know. Do you?
But if they're groundbreaking and we really like the
if we like them, yeah, we have some taste, like how to say it? We have some taste, so to say. Like,
sure.
we don't just jump on everything.
No.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, it's a democratic because if people are interested, why not? I would see.
I think it's interesting to hear you talk about like how you could create like a certain model for yourself. I actually worked a lot with that. So I don't know if I can I don't know if you guys expect me because I'm from a different background. Maybe you didn't hear, but I am studying art management.
That's perfect, actually. Just
Yes.
come on.
That's the thing. I don't want you to expect me to just have like answers for you or anything.
That's why I'm
Give me
here.
the meaning of life. Here you go. Here you go. More money. I got
Make
it.
it all right. Please provide ideas.
But I can. What helped me a lot when in finding not finding a solution or finding something, but more looking at yourself and at your organization and the way you do things and the way other people see you, other people see you, is by looking at everything you do as like an individual thing. And you can do this. It's now not really new anymore, but it's called this method called business model generation. It's a book actually.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've got maybe some.
I
But there's new methods now. But so it's a little bit outdated actually now already, but it goes quick. But this business model generation I like a lot is because they created a canvas. It's actually a Dutch guy, I forgot his name. They created a canvas with 9 different elements that you have to kind of take into account when you want to create a new business model for yourself or for your organization. And by looking at your organization from all these different perspectives and different elements, you kind of, it's like a puzzle. You know, you really look at everything individually and see how you can maybe mash it up again and look for another way of finding resources, money. So it seems like Worm has a lot of very interesting resources available, but maybe you're not using them in the right way. And I'm just taking you as a case right now, okay? But just because we've been talking about it for a while, it's still in my head. But this is for everyone. If you look at the resources you have, it's more than you think. And you are working, it's very interesting to see how you collaborated. And by collaborating, you created another resource or something in a way. Like it's another thing that is worth money or worth something. And individually, you also are worth something. So it's like an extra. So I think it's very good if you look at, just an advice, just to look at everything separate and then seeing how it's connected to each other at this moment. And then trying to find different ways of connecting the things that you already have. Because I often have the feeling people want to look for totally new things,
external things,
and it's not necessary often. You know, you have so much more already. You have a lot.
That sounds very spiritual.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, maybe it is. At least that's what I notice a lot. The people I talk to is that, And also, this is something, it's just a frustration I have is that when I hear people talk about looking for funds and subsidies, which is something I'm very much for, but I'm also very much against in a way. I'm just while I sit here, I have like one side going, and the other one going, this is good, this is bad, this is good. It's really irritating because if you write a subsidieaanvraag, funding
application,
then you're applying for grants, and if you're good at writing, you're gonna get it. If you suck at writing, and you have a great idea, you could just blow. You won't get the fund, and that's something that I want to just personally change. That. How can you say if something is going to work or if something has potential just by looking at a piece of paper? You know, like maybe we can also think of another way of communicating what we're good at. We're better than that, just writing it down. And you know, like that's the thing. If you look at what a fund is looking for, they have like a list of criteria. Because I was looking for this myself for a project I'm working on. A list of criteria, like we look at this project, we want it to be in Utrecht, we want this, we want that, and then you are actually writing your authenticity kind of is blown away because you have to just write because you want them to give you money, so you're going to write according to their standards, And if you don't do that, you won't get the money, you know that. So, okay, we're not based in Amsterdam anymore, we're based in Utrecht now because it will give us money then. You know, it goes very far, I think. And why? Like, that's something that I think I should talk to the funding people about. But, you know, it's
I've
just,
heard some situations that people said like, okay, we should do a little picnic with the area. Oh, let's do it, and then we can apply for this grant and we should do this site.
so then we can get.
But on the other hand, it's very personal because I don't know a lot of organizers who don't do these things. They say like, this is our product, we go that way, and we need these partners, and they're really looking to match these partners and maybe even build a relationship over a period of time. That you find the right funder and you can work with them and they support your goals and you support their program. And I think that's very important, to look for your right partners instead of just for the money.
Well, I totally agree with the partnerships are very worth a lot instead of seeing them as subsidizers, or it's kind of it comes from two sides and don't see it as just one-way traffic.
But it's at the same time, maybe I need money next year and I think, oh, shit, I can do it. I don't know, but it's very.
That's the same.
Which I totally understand. I totally understand.
One of the things that is crucial, especially when going through partnerships, is time. Because you need time to invest in such a partnership before it becomes clear what one organization can mean to the other, and vice versa. And I have the idea that this whole need to change in cultural, the budget cuts are going so fast that the organizations that are already here, like Stein, like Worm, don't have the time to adjust to the new. I mean, you hear that you lose your funding, but you don't get the time to build up a partnership with some other organization to replace those fundings. So maybe there's some ideas about like how to buy time and how to survive the in-between period between.
If anyone knows it, you should. How to buy time.
I don't sleep, but other than that.
Well, it's even a different question, I think, is what is the value of Worm for the network you're in? That's a really hard question. And there, from that you can work on partnership, but if your environment is just say,
and I think additional would be, like, does the network you're in already contain the partners you would need to survive?
Yeah, but for Worm, this situation is really difficult because it's very much opposed to the sketch you just gave. Because Worm does not write what people want to read, and we are purely and only involved with creating uncompromising work. So yes, we do want to dance with everyone, but we want to have it to be fun, and the way we see fun. And that's a really harsh thing at the moment, and also from, even though I completely understand where you're trying to get at with indeed looking for partnerships and having to bend ways in which you might have not done before, but there is like the segment of work that Worm tries to involve itself in is but I also think that this is now then disappearing within that organization, unfortunately. But like I mentioned, the uncompromising attitude that Worm has always had, and we wrote funding applications. Like probably some of them are public, but they are so weird, and they are very, they are really, really not what people expect to read. And Worm has a tradition of always doing something different than what everyone expected it to do. So yeah, that's and maybe I'm exaggerating it a little bit, but that's so for us. That's like also in moving towards commercial partnerships. we have indeed, I mean, I do believe we have a very valuable network, and there's all kinds of really interesting parties that we could do stuff with. But in terms of the work on its own, like the stuff that we like to see, and why these organizations also established in Rotterdam, to basically get people to Rotterdam that we think are interesting, so that everyone in Rotterdam might be able to see them, you know. That's becoming more and more difficult, especially then again if you just have just barely enough to keep the door open, so to say. That's but yeah, I mean, ideally, and we are thinking, like what we hear a lot in recent times. Maybe Joel has some better perspective on this, but like what we hear a lot in meetings now is like, we're moving towards a more American model in terms of funding, and we had this guy over, Brian Turner from WFMU, and a couple of people were really completely infatuated by how WFMU runs a radio station with funding, and basically how a lot of culture is able to exist in the United States. But I guess it kind of connects to the buying time idea. It's like how to create a buffer and how to
transit, maybe.
Yeah, because also those partnerships that you might have already in your network, and the ones of which you might think that those are the interesting ones that we can work with in the future. Like you still have to. Like we barely have an idea of what to do, but then you still also have to educate those partners, you know, about, for example, best practice models, and we can also do the whole thing like this. But like just making a shift from completely subsidized art, as it has been in the Netherlands for decades, towards an American model or any other model that relies really heavily on the goodwill of people and all kinds of. And all the other interpersonal relationships that emerge within systems like that also. I mean,
in America it only seems to work in a few cities that have a huge concentration of wealth, like New York or San Francisco, where there's an obscene concentration of very wealthy people who can be talked to and be reached. Yeah. And then you go to another city in the Midwest or culture cities that doesn't exist as a possibility. They got that kind of Also, they've got that kind of cultural imperative. Places like San Francisco, New York have this sense that you as a rich person have an obligation to spread yourself out. Which is good for us. Noblesse oblige kind of thing. It's a capitalist culture. It's difficult. In other cities where it does work, something like Columbus, Ohio, there's just one rich person who does everything for that city.
Really? I was an exchange student in Columbus, Ohio.
Wexler, you probably heard the name.
What's it?
Wexler.
I should know this. I don't know.
Pay for the dance.
Columbus of all places in the world.
Of all places in the world, yeah. Well, I just happen to know that's the guy. The guy. And he's second generation. Like his father owned everything and gave him, and then he gives it over to you.
But isn't that like just as fragile as?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Even more so. So the question is what would be the advantage of having Google pay for your art instead of Hilbert Hey. What's the advantage of having Google Pay, you know, Jeff Brin or something like that, versus a bunch of mindless bureaucrats in The Hague who actually aren't mindless? They're actually people who take themselves seriously as being interested in new guys.
Yeah, or even the example of this Tasmanian guy that just has a shitload of money and just made a museum, created a collection, and like
that's what it is in LA. The best museum in LA is Getty. Just a guy who's an oil millionaire from Texas who just decided he wanted to own all the art. And he did. He spent it all.
I find it difficult to say that's, I mean, I don't see much bad about that at all, but it's not, it's just so far removed from how to, I mean, it's, saying like how to run a country or something. It's like, man.
But the thing is, for me, you really want professional bureaucrats to make the decision. Because I think the beautiful idea is this idea from the 70s or 60s in Holland, this idea of the Raad voor de Kunst, which is that the decisions are actually made by artists, sort of.
Because this is also what
that's what they got rid of.
Mm.
Yeah, because this is also
That's
really
the really
difficult for us
dangerous
to
thing.
hear that,
Yeah.
for example, when some of our people went to the board of Rotterdam and to try and investigate, like apparently they had one meeting with the Rotterdam pop media together and another meeting more informally, but I mean it's just so hard to learn from those people who made those decisions. That they really, they on the one hand they didn't know what they're doing, and on the other hand you could even also say they might have not cared so much even, and they had no perspective of all the consequences. But this is of course also the time we're living in at the moment, because I've talked about this a lot also with colleagues and friends, is that even though I'm now talking about Worm and a bit broader about new media arts in the Netherlands, but like I come from a really small town in the east, and there are also the music school that I attended in the library that was pretty much next to my house. Those are also closed, you know. Those are also closed. So the whole country is affected in a way that is really unprecedented.
In the last 40, 50 years.
Yeah, I guess at least for as long as I've been around.
Yeah. No, it's, when I read the big issue was whether they should continue to buy art from artists like they have been in the 70s. And that's what stopped in the 90s, is this thing of constantly paying for art by directly buying up the art. These huge collections like they have at this state.
And then of course now, especially in visual arts, as compared to, for example, Belgium and Germany, like in the Netherlands, there are actually not many collectors. There's not many people.
Yeah, not many private collections.
Yeah, there's not many people who are actually buying art.
Yeah, but that's the difference maybe between the Netherlands and flat culture, this kind of idea of, if we were to depend on rich people in Holland, who are they? It's a big secret here. They're completely separated from us.
But isn't it like one of the reasons why we don't know?
Yeah.
Maybe one of the reasons why we don't know who these people are is that there has always been a government provided, so they never had to.
They never had to be visible somewhere.
Well, it's changing though.
Yeah.
They call it business angels. These people are called business angels.
Yeah.
Take a look at it. No, really, it's a real,
Business
it's an official term.
Yeah.
And I talked to them. And so I was like, "Please have money," and I wanted. Well, what the idea behind it is that these people have money, and if they see potential in a certain idea, an entrepreneur has an idea, they see potential in it and they invest in it. This is how it works, and then they get a certain percentage of it. Those are all kinds of things that you can
Like a venture
talk.
capital.
Yeah.
But
So
there's also this thing called Art Angels in London.
Oh,
which
okay.
is similar, but it's different because there it's not a really rich businessman. It's the idea that you, let's say you're a dentist or a doctor or a rich stock market person, City of London person, you can buy into this corporation for some rather large amount of money for us, you know, a few thousands of dollars, maybe $10,000, something like that. And then you become part of Art Angel. Every time there's an opening, you get to have dinner with the artist.
I think, there's similar things going on right now here.
But it's that's a middle ground. So the idea, no, really successful because they've been the most successful art promoter. You probably heard of them. They're really successful.
Well, I could eat dinner every night.
Well, this is an alternative way of financing projects. It's structure. I should have said this earlier.
Yeah.
But I'm just keeping it going. You know. But it's interesting, but it's difficult because it's not that the Dutch culture is not. It's not so. That's not really grounded in this culture yet. I'm half American, and so I kind of know a little bit how it works in the U.S. as well, and it's just not. People it's not the same.
It's not so
It's just different, you know. Of course, it's not.
No,
the
the
same.
idea of
But-
charity or that sort of thing
Yeah.
has been delegated in Holland to the government.
Yeah,
So
and everything
it's
there.
a gazelle-
Everything is a
it's gazelle
fundraiser
share.
in the U.S. Everything is fundraising. Everything.
And maybe still have another look at that whole crowdfunding thing, where it's not just asking for money, but the whole sort of, okay, if you donate
You're also
so
giving
much,
back.
we'll
You'll
pay a
see
private.
you'll see it back.
Yeah, exactly. Or if you pay more than €100, we'll go to your place and play a private concert in your living room or something.
Well,
Yeah.
that's
Right.
kind of you have it a lot with Fort Guns does that. They ask you to, you know, you can offer 100 euros or 200, and the more you give, the more you'll get back.
But the whole thing is that I think the most interesting part of it, I think, is the building up a really intimate connection with your crowd.
Yeah.
Like if you have given a private concert in someone's living room, chances that they show up at the final event are that much bigger because it's almost like building a friendship.
They've already seen you.
Yeah.
Exactly. But
That's true though, building a friend, you should see it as that and not yeah.
It's a sort of mixture between also like a sort of promotion marketing campaign and at the same time getting your income. It's like sort of, and you see like for the Kunst, I think the most successful projects are also the ones that promote themselves the best.
Mhm.
They're doing lots of different things and getting the crowd around them and
Yeah.
spark this whole network, and you share the. So there are a lot of tools to do it, but also the problem is people who don't have this access to all these networks and have a good idea and have a good product are left behind. So I think now for the Kunst is now working to help them a bit more, to coach them a bit more, to get out there and because it's very, if you're technological, more advanced or more better in networks, you get the money. It's the same as writing your funding.
But it also, I'm not sure, but I would say it also polarizes in favor of more cutesy and easygoing art, you know. So
Yeah.
like a lot of stuff that goes on at Worm, like usually, there's also, it's not really there's a motto going like, we are actually very interested in having projects fail, you know, because you can learn a lot from that.
Yeah.
And the end result might still be interesting in a way.
Did you get feedback on? Did you write that in your funding report, or how do you say
Yeah,
that?
that is actually something that is in a lot of those.
And did you get feedback on that specifically? I'm just very curious to see what they said about that.
Well, it was mentioned a bit already. It's like I mean, we are not strangers to the funding bodies. We have a long-standing relationship with all of these people who are giving us money, many of which, like for example, people in the committees now might be people that worked with Worm in an earlier day, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So people know what we do, and it's not so much of a surprise to the people who are actually who have the fingers on these buttons. But yeah, it's again the same thing. Like with very experimental and uncompromising work, crowdfunding might not be the really ideal.
on the other hand, I do have the feeling that those kinds of ventures, the people who do enjoy these things are usually very loyal. There aren't that many people who like for example, extreme noise things, who like that like for a month and then switch to I don't know, some other thing. There is sort of a loyal. Well, there could be a really loyal following. So it might not be completely hopeless to try to mobilize these people. And,
No.
I mean, I don't see why we are completely scratching the whole crowdsourcing thing. Yeah, saying like it's not the way to go without even trying. I mean, maybe it's a really naive way of saying it, but like that, I'm gonna just give a complete. I mean, you're gonna say it's commercial at the end, but actually not. There are these game companies. No, there are game companies, there are game publishers, etc. And when in the whole game thing, what is really commercial or what's going to sell the most is pretty clear, like how good visuals, like high-end visuals or whatever, like lots of violence or whatever is provocative or mainstream. That's going to get the blood running in a teenager. But that's basically it. But there are game makers, game designers. They are like, aside from the indie scene that is developing nowadays, that did back in the old days like really adventure games, which is sort of lost in today's. If you're not into games and if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's all right. But let's just take my word for it for now. But these people, for example, just happened to be Tim Schafer. I don't know if any of you know. He managed to put the Kickstarter thingy. Monkey Island, Green Fandango, all kinds of things that, I mean, if you were playing games when you were a kid, the nostalgia will kick in. But people funded it because of this, and the thing that he was promising was, aside from the giving away the game and etc., they were doing this without any publisher problem. Like, they just wanted to do what they wanted to do. They had the team, they had the network, but they already had the resources, the people they know, and they just asked for the money, and they get it. Like, I don't know, I'm just
10 times as much.
Yeah,
10
exactly.
times.
It's like we're talking about millions.
Yeah.
But there's I think one major difference between this example.
Okay, it's
and
a
what we're talking
product,
about
you're gonna
here.
say.
No,
No,
it's
already.
worldwide.
Hmm?
It's worldwide. And
Okay.
and work
Yeah,
is
okay.
only local.
And
But you can't. I mean, music is worldwide. Music.
Yeah, but a specific
For example.
location in a specific city
That's true.
is
Specific.
For festivals, you mean
it's so
okay.
much more specific. And I mean, how many people from the States, or how many people from Japan, or how many people from China are
Ask for
gonna
something
donate
mobile then, like
for
some-
a venue?
But
It's-
I mean, I don't want to diss on the whole crowdsourcing thing at all anyway, because it is true that Worm has a very solid international reputation in many, many different scenes. And if all of the people connected to all of those different international scenes would give us like 10 cents or something, we'd probably be okay. You know?
Yeah, how many
Yeah.
of those are musicians paying you to up and coming from music?
Yeah, it's, I mean, and we've tried we've tried a lot of different things in terms of funding, crowdsourcing. I mean, we had a guy doing an internship who was making kind of this pay-to-play social platform, or what was it called, MyStage or something, where basically there is something around like that nowadays also, where basically you can put a concert up, and if enough people back that concert,
Mhm.
you will gain enough money to actually book that band, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, we're doing stuff like that, but it's just
And also I
Yeah.
think the crowdsourced thing is maybe much more effective on a project basis than
Okay,
on
that's true.
an institutional basis.
yeah.
it's a bit like how Christina said earlier, is that people who would be funding you is us, you know.
It's
We'd
us,
all-
yeah.
we would all be giving money to each other.
I
and
think
it's-
that's a strange thing, because I have to crowdfund a venue which I'm going to play at next month.
yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and yeah. But,
Well-
and also another thing is that, for example, Worm, from like large, or how do you say, really big threads that we've been involved in, like general lines where you want to focus on, like avant-garde art, sustainability, recycling of materials and stuff. Like, for example, in this whole green sector, Worm has like a major amount of goodwill from all kinds of parties involved with sustainable design, green, whatever, you know. But also, all of those organizations, they're not the wealthiest, you know. Like, those are not usually, like, a lot of the people that we have goodwill from, they're also not the most wealthy ones. It's like it's kind of the curse of subcultural work, I guess. Maybe I don't know, but still, I do see the new situation with even just keeping that building open and see what happens. I mean, I see a lot of possibilities for that also. So.
I think one of the tools of these times is to kind of create a virality. So to make something really viral that's a new
It's
way.
not really easy.
No, but I think if you have like a really
there's these workshops nowadays on how to make viral videos.
yeah. Well, I haven't seen any of them, but I think if you have like a global network and all these subcultures, then it becomes really interesting, because then there can be like interlinks that you don't know of, that maybe to help something become viral, and it might be much more easy if you if you go from these well-known connections.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's also, I mean, even my paranoid self could even say, like, had Facebook had a crowdfunding platform built within it, and not trying to gain all advertising money for its own right, then you could say that the little protest evolved when we put out this danger message.
Yeah.
That's what
People might have just donated quarters or
Each
euros,
like
you know.
automatically 10 cents.
So it's also, I mean, I agree if what you're saying is that, I mean, I think it's kind of early days also for this, you know, even ideas of crowdfunding but also the proper technological structures for this, because of course many of the large dominant networks that allow you to do this type of funding, they are again corporations, you know. Oftentimes they are also businesses with a certain interest. So.
But you get this group of people called Getting Things Done, Get It Done, is it? And they organize projects throughout the whole world. And they have like a project from Nigeria, and somebody says, okay, I want to build a school. He puts a project on a platform, and then he is like the first person on this location. And then the platform, you can apply for the project, and you can make a connection with this person, and you're the local guardian of the funding. So you get like a sort of connection between two locations, and you can gather up all your friends. You have like all these widgets, you can place them on Facebook, on MySquare, and you have a whole toolbox how to raise money. And I think that's a very interesting new development, that you get like all these plugins and all these systems where you're empowered to raise your own money for a project.
What's it called?
It's Getting Things Done, or Get It Done.
Getting Things Done is the book.
Oh, it's the book.
But you're talking about a project in a certain place, and then for example, I live in Groningen. Theoretically, I could connect to that project in Nigeria or whatever.
Search the index.
And for example, you live in Russia, and you could say, okay, I plug from Russia, and you could gather around all your friends, and that's really cool.
Yeah, it's like a one-on-one connection between two locations and two projects, and or they are shared. You can find someone else in the community and say, okay, I want to, because you already did this project really well, please join my project and we can work together on this. So it's like a sort of network of raising money and sharing money. And we were thinking, but when I talked with this guy from For the Kunst, and I said like, okay, we have this festival, and we have for every artist we have a page on the website. What if we could incorporate a sort of donation system within this page, that you not only get like the information, but you can maybe say, okay, this is a new work, and if everybody wants this work on the festival, you can just donate directly. It's like the same if you have a problem or
like more specific donations for
more specific
within a bigger context.
Yeah.
But this is something completely different than the Get It Done thing.
That's completely different. The For the Kunst is like the platform.
But
if you take it into smaller parts and maybe put it on different places, it works differently. It gets more personal.
But it gets way harder as an organization as well, because you don't know what you're going to get. When you start out, you don't know. I mean, there might be 3 works, there might be 20.
Well, there's something else related to this that I wanted to mention. So earlier we heard 2 interns, one who worked at Worm, another who worked here at Stein, and like some of the remarks were on, for example, having a place and also meeting people there. There's a certain experience in-house that is readily available for people to learn from. And I just wanted to emphasize that this is what is at stake now, right? Because the reality of our situation, for example, right now, is that the people with those decades of experience that normally you would want to talk about art with, you know, those are now unavailable because they're trying to wrap their head around how the hell to crowdfund their organization, you know. So this is imposing all these weird structures and having to find money in all corners of the world is at the same time, of course, currently, it's blocking creativity. That would be a simple way.
Time consuming.
That's why art managers exist. I guess, but you know, there's a problem when I started the studies 4 years ago. Yeah, the first talk was like, yeah, you're gonna go into this great world, and there's so much job opportunities for you, and because people need you, and and yeah, sure, but there's no money for me. So it's like, I'm sure people need me, but there's no one there to pay me. So I'm gonna like going into this big black hole after I graduate. It's very cynical, maybe, but sorry. No, it goes.
Well, we had when moving to the new building and also doing crowdfunding things for that and trying to generate as much money as possible for certain artworks that we wanted to have in the building. We contracted a guy on a temporary basis who was from the Dutch, from the Omroep thing. He worked in broadcasting for TV networks and stuff. So this was a guy who was specifically hired to do networking and to generate funding for the organization. And he had this really interesting network with all kinds of important Dutch famous people in it, Ensport. And but also that type of input, be it even on a professional level, it was not so. I mean, we gained something from it, but I think it kind of evened out with what we paid him in the end. You know, it's not like he. But also that situation could have been more, or we expected to be more interesting in that sense. So indeed, also for people, let's say for a professional grant writer, I don't know if that really works, you know, because.
What are you trying to say, actually? I'm sorry.
But
like, do you mean that on project-based that won't work, or someone that has to really be connected to your organization in a way, in order to really fully understand and communicate what you want to communicate? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, what would that even be? You know, art management, or like in an organization?
Well, I hate the word myself as well. It's just because that's not for the studies. It's called arts of art management, Master of Arts in Art Management. I don't like the term either because it's kind of contradictory to what I like to do. You know, and managing something is not. There's a whole research I did about this, but yeah, you know, like. Managing something that like art is sometimes just it's not manageable. And also not only that, you don't want to manage it.
But is it about managing the art or the way it's created in a new environment?
Well, that's how I kind of translate it for myself in a way.
Maybe you can take a short break and catch a little bit of air before all the air runs out. And continue after that.
I heard today that we have 16 tons of air on our heads.
Wow!
It's not so much here.
Was it that
16 tons, something like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's why
a lot of air.
That's a lot of air.
That's a lot of air.
And if there's room.
Maybe we can send it.
Time before we wrap up, actually, Glebo also joined the stream, and they were talking about why broadcasting events, but like so your money comes to you yourself are the broadcaster or whatever. So I'm trying to get the idea what they're exactly talking about, but like adaptive, spontaneous events. Organization,
do they have their own conference?
Streaming and making different levels of experience. It's nothing really. I mean, I was arguing with them that it's not so much of a.
Let's first do air.
Okay, you were just telling me. Okay, whatever you said.
Let's first do air.
That's a better concept.
This is actually really cool what we have.
Why didn't you interrupt me? I was just telling them what they were saying.
I think we should start with that after the break.
I think it's close, but let's see.
Great.
Hello. Hey there.
say. So was it even recording? If this wasn't recording, I'm gonna cry.
Oh well, we did get responses, so it was streaming.
Yeah, but
Discussies.
nice, hè?
Ja, prima. Interessant.
Yeah, it's sometimes some discussions go on a bit long,
Yeah, that's
but I
true.
feel like if I cut them off, then
No, it's
then we
really,
get
it's, do it. Just do it.
yeah, but we get these silences again. Like sort of as long
It's
as
okay.
flowing-
Oh no, wait. Silences are so,
Yeah,
worth
it's
so much.
true.
Sometimes it's very good to leave a silence.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, the discussion sort of gave the kick. To
Yeah.
get some topics going, but it's going well now. So.
I don't get this. I can't find the stop section.
It still misses some people.
How do I? This is just weird. Okay. How do I get this thing?
Now what does Stein do exactly? Like workshops?